Welcome to the program agenda. Please join us this morning as we tackle a very important subject matter attached to numerous events that's been happening. And to sum it all up, it's been a rough week for Philippine media as efforts are clearly being taken to either regulate, restrict, limit Philippine media, particularly broadcast, okay? And today we are going to tackle that with three different resource persons to give us the academic, the legal, and the professional perspective on the various events and actions of different government agencies concerning broadcast in the Philippines. But in the meantime, let's begin with the program by me saying thank you to all of you for joining us today, for being Cignal subscribers, viewers of One News PH, and of course, for being followers of Agenda. Today is June 29, 2022. It's just one day away from the inauguration of President-elect BBM. And let's get on with the day's starter. Our daily starter comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 8. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and to everyone who knocks, the door will be open. Believe me, you, that this is one of those Bible verses that I really believe in, I adhere, and I profess, because when I seek, I find, when I ask, I receive, and when I knock, opportunities open. And that is the word of the Lord for the day. And let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. June 29, 2022, the headline reads, Supreme Court junks two petitions versus BBM candidacy. At least two petitions submitted to the Supreme Court have been dismissed or junked by the SC. At the top of the front page, the header, NTC wants to review broadcast block time deals. Okay, and that is going to be our main subject matter today. The National Telecommunications Commission issued recently a memorandum number 0406-2022, wherein they informed, they didn't inform, they told broadcast stations, executives that they are to submit any proposed or ongoing deals regarding block timers. Yung block timers po, yan yung mga bumibili ng oras sa isang stasyon para makapag-ere ng kanilang programa. Kumbaga, parang, if I'm not mistaken, Eat Bulaga is a block timer on GMA. Yung Wawawi was a block timer in ABS-CBN and maybe a block timer of GMA now. But now, the NTC wants block stations to submit for review and approval those block time deals. Medyo ito po, there is something behind this that is of serious concern to business people. Okay. Meanwhile, that photo that you see at the top of the front page, that's motorists crawling in their cars in front of the Manila City Hall yesterday after the government closed some roads near the National Museum starting June 26 as part of security preparations for President-elect Ferdinand Marcos' inauguration tomorrow, June 30. Yan po, everything essentially came to a crawl. Meanwhile, Malacanang responded to the Senate regarding their report of smugglers and saying that, well, demanda ninyo. Sue agri-smugglers. Okay, yan na po ang depensa ng Malacanang concerning the alleged involvement of government officials in the agricultural smuggling operations in the country. And that center photo is a picture of fuel prices being adjusted by a gasoline attendant, and the inner box, the Department of Agriculture, moves to address high chicken prices. If you read that story in today's edition of the Philippine Star, you will find out medyo mukhang inopen up na ng DA lahat ng pintuan para makabiyahe, makagalaw, makabenta ng mga related supplies to chicken or poultry production. Metro under alert level 1 until July 15. So the alert level 1 standing of Metro Manila has been extended to July 15 into the next administration. That photo at the bottom left, members of the Manila Police District Civil Disturbance Management Unit conduct rally simulation along TM Calao Street. The irony of the matter is they are preparing for something that will never happen because they have essentially created an inner wall of Manila around the National Museum. Practice pa kayo ng practice. Sabi naman ninyong hindi makakapasok ang mga realista. Anyway, government lifts RT-PCR for on-site workers under level 1. So hindi na kailangan ng RT-PCR for those who are going back to work. Simplicity defines Marcos fashion for inaugural. Mukhang after unity, okay, the next word for the BBM inaugural is simplicity. Okay, I'm sure that the immediate family of BBM will be simple and observe simplicity. The question is, what about the relatives and the friends? Okay, that's all the news we have on the front page of the Philippine Star. And now, let's go to our serious subject matter for the day. As I already read in the front page news, the National Telecommunications Commission has ordered a memorandum essentially telling broadcast operators, magpaalam muna kayo, get our permission for block time arrangements. Now, a lot of stations reacted violently to this kasi pinapakialaman na raw yung kanilang kabuhayan. It is no longer about regulating telecommunications. It's already interfering in the conduct of business. Okay, let's now go to our first set of guests for today. We have actually 3 individuals to cover the academe, to cover the KBP, and to cover the legal perspective, to explain to us the legality or illegality or unconstitutionality of such a memorandum. Let's start with our first set with this introduction.
Danilo Arao is Associate Professor at the Department of Journalism of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Arao is also the convener of Poll Watchdog Contra Daya. He also serves as editor of peer-reviewed journal Media Asia. Herman Basbaño is the president of the Kapisanan ng mga Brodkaster ng Pilipinas or KBP. Basbaño is also the vice president and chief operating officer of the AM division of Bombo Radio Philippines.
Okay, welcome gentlemen, welcome Professor Arao and President KBP President Basbaño. Welcome to the program agenda. Now, I just have to add this, ladies and gentlemen. Aside from the NTC memorandum, please remember that last week the NTC also removed the facilities for the media group that the National Security Council labeled as communist-related. And then this morning, I got this breaking news that the Securities and Exchange Commission has upheld their order to shut down the Rappler Group. Okay, that is directly from Maria Ressa, who made the announcement in the United States. Okay, I will defer to seniority and authority first. KBP President Herman Basbaño. Sir, ayoko pong mag-opinionate dito, although I've already expressed my opinion in the Philippine Star. What is your position on the matter?
Well, we still have to discuss with the board, but we most likely would seek clarification on the order of the NTC, Cito. No po? Kasi there seems to be not right, no, in the process. Diba? Parang may order, and then there's a scheduled hearing come July 11, Cito. No? So nauna yata yung order bago yung hearing, meaning hindi pa napakinggan yung mga stakeholders. Na sana dyan marinig kung anong mga panig ng bawat stakeholder dito, Cito. No? So we'll seek clarification on this.
Okay, now let's talk about setup, about positions, authorities, etc. The National Telecommunications has authority over the facility, the airwave, the technology, etc. Correct?
Yeah.
And you, the KBP, is the presidentially, by presidential decree, is the self-censoring body that essentially you're the bastonero, you manage the affairs of broadcasters, correct?
Yes, we have the system of self-regulation, Cito.
Correct. Okay, pasensya ka na. Medyo hindi ako ganun kakomplikado mag-isip eh. Yung self-regulation, that was given to the KBP by presidential decree under Ferdinand Marcos Sr. to oversee and regulate the broadcast industry. Now, under whom does this thing about block timer falls? Is that in the purview or in the authority of the NTC or the KBP?
Well, it should be under the KBP and the networks. No, this concerns content, Cito. And I have heard from our General Counsel, si Atty. Reggie Larbal, that there is a Supreme Court ruling, no, that NTC has no jurisdiction over content. So dapat walang ganitong klaseng order, Cito.
Okay, pasensya ka na, Sir Herman, but there are certain things I will really stand against, and this is one of them. But let's go to our friend in the University of the Philippines Journalism Department, Professor Arao. What is your take on this development? Is this just part of a wave, or is this particular memorandum of the NTC of grave concern to you as a professor?
This is very, very concerning because, as Mr. Basbaño correctly noted, this has to do with content. If you would read Executive Order number 546, which established the NTC, which was then called the Ministry for Communication, MTC at that particular time, there's no clear provision regarding content. Now, I've read the two draft memoranda. What they're saying is that they have the right to seek certain requirements prior to the issuance of the certificate of public convenience or the issuance of the recommendation for franchise, subject to legislative approval. However, nowhere in the executive order does it talk about regulation of media content, and rightly so, because under our constitution, no law shall be passed abridging our basic freedoms, including press freedom. So, Cito, as early as now, we should remember that this already constitutes, the abridgment, or the abridging rather, of our freedom of the press, because we don't want anything to get in the way of airing certain media content, and then the government will have certain mechanisms to regulate it. So, to answer your question, the quick answer there is grave concern with these two draft memoranda, and that this should be opposed.
Okay, now, Sir Herman, what can you add into this discussion Because maraming hindi naintindihan itong block timer na ito. For the sake of those who are not familiar, yung block timer po ay parang yung TV station is like a mall subletting their space in their facility. Now in television, it is the TV station who is selling off 1 hour or 2 hour cuts of their broadcast time to independent producers because it is cheaper for the station to allow block timers to operate. Kasi wala na silang aasikasuhin mga employees, mga talents, production expenses, etc. But Sir Herman, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think it is well known among media circles, especially in broadcast, that there have been ongoing negotiations with different companies. ABS-CBN, the defunct ABS-CBN as we knew it, is now trying to survive by farming out. Kumbaga kinakalat na nila yung kanilang mga talents, yung kanilang mga content para first for employment and second for continuity. Now, they have been negotiating or have been working with Zoe Broadcasting, with TV5, with our own Cignal TV, etc. And do you suspect that this NTC memorandum is a blatant attempt to block any attempts by ABS-CBN to survive or to thrive under duress?
Well, I don't want to speculate, Cito, as to the reason why they came out with this ruling. No? But going back kanina sa on the description of kung paano yung block time, yung mga prerogative ng mga networks, para lang sa clarification ng ating tagapakinig, sa mga programming, alam natin yan, alam nyo yan, no, na yung mga networks can have their own production, di ba? Yun ang una. No? We produce our news, public affairs, and other programs. No? Then merong co-production na nangyayari. The network will partner with somebody from the outside, then come up with the programming. Then the third, itong block time. But an entire block, 1 hour, 2 hours, ay ibigay sa isang gusto na magprograma at tinatawag yan na block time at saka block timers. And even the block timers, pwede na kukuha sila ng kung sinong mga hawak niya na maging talent, maging announcer. So yun ang tatlong mga paraan ng paghawak ng programming. At itong block time, itong issue ngayon, which we feel na talagang may issue ng constitutionality, priority restraint, sabi ni Professor Arao, pati na yung, of course, press freedom dyan. So yun ang talagang we will oppose this, but we will try to present first our position in the hearing that have been scheduled by NTC. But if it fails, then we will be forced to go to the courts of law, Cito.
Okay, now, is it legal or illegal? Kasi in the column that I wrote today in the Philippine Star, I made a point that it seems, presumably, it is legal for stations and businesses to enter into this block time arrangement. So where in the law does it say that the NTC or anyone has to be limited, restricted to 50% of content to block timers? And pati yung mamaya pag-uusapan siguro namin ni Attorney Cayosa, yung joint liability. Kasi I remember back then, Professor Arao and Sir Herman, during my father's time, bibili sila ng oras sa GMA at mag-e-air sila ng straight from the shoulder. Dong Puno on another day would buy time from GMA and air his viewpoint. If I'm not, kundi ako medyo namamatanda, viewpoint, di ba? And lagi sa umpisa, at the beginning of the show, it would state, the views and opinions expressed therein are not necessarily those of the station or its executive. And so nalibre na yung station. Sir Herman, meron bang batas na naglilimita on how much can be sold or offered as airtime? And meron ba nitong, saan ang galing itong, kasi may abogado nagsabi sa akin, pare, alamin mo nga saan ang galing yan, joint and solidarily liable. Anak ng kamote, saan nila nakakuha yun?
This early, Cito, wala tayong makita na basehan dyan. No? So nasabi ko na kanina, there is that Supreme Court ruling na NTC has no jurisdiction over content sa mga mayor yun. And in other countries, Cito, black timing is encouraged. Dahil na, it will be good for also the public kasi iba-ibang ideya, di ba? Iba-ibang participants sa pagpalakad ng programming. Ibang-ibang programa yung lalabas dyan. So, hindi na ma-monopolize ng network owners o station managers yung pagpalakad ng programa. So that will be good for the public as well, di ba? Of course, it cannot be denied. It will be a source of revenue also para sa mga stations. Ngayon ang black time nandyan sa big networks, may medium-sized networks, and even to the small networks in the provinces. Yun ang mga beneficiaryo nito, Cito. Kung ma-implement to, for example, God forbid, malaking epekto talaga nito sa industriya, Cito.
Yeah, because you're also, I mean, you are head of the Bombo Radio AM department, so puro kayo radyo. And practically, 50% of all radio programs in the country are black timers, am I correct? Sa AM,
In many stations, but not in our network, sa Bombo Radio. No? Almost all of the programs are run by the network. No? Our News Public Affairs Trust Network. So yun. But in many other stations, non-networks of course, are having black timers in their programs.
Okay, Dan, Professor Dan, sali ka lang anytime, Pero tanungin ko lang si Sir Herman. Sir Herman, okay, you said that Bombo Radio, which is a big radio network, okay, operates all of your programs. Kumbaga, sariling gawa yan. The rest of the small stations all over the country are dependent on black timer. Without the black timer, wala silang kita talaga. Now, I pointed out in my column that if this situation prevails, the big boys become the monopolies.
Well, ganun yung mangyari dyan, Cito. But even the big boys, diba, they also have their own black times. Many. Yeah. So it's all over, actually.
Okay, tatamaan din sila. Okay, Professor Arao, anong imong masasabi, sir?
Yeah, based on what Mr. Basbaño mentioned, it will effectively shut down certain news media organizations, certain radio and TV stations that are not able to comply with the NTC order. And that 50% seems to have been plucked out of thin air. What's the basis for it? And sometimes you cannot help but think as to whether or not a particular news media organization is being targeted, given, I understand, its ongoing negotiations with other news media organizations to make its presence felt in other stations. We refer here to ABS-CBN. We have to relate, Cito, the lack of due process with the NTC right now with the lack of due process that happened with the shutdown of selected websites. Of course, I'm a party in interest here because I'm the associate editor of Bulatlat and columnist of Pinoy Weekly, two of the websites that were ordered shut down by the NTC based on a letter request from the National Security Council. So, of course, we also need to incorporate the, essentially the shutdown or the proposed impending shutdown of Rappler, given the news that the SEC has already decided regarding the revocation of its registration. So this particular scenario is clearly an attack on media, which is very unfortunate as we are, practically in the twilight of the Duterte administration and we're now slowly transitioning to the Marcos administration. We don't want that to happen, and we hope that all media groups, including the KBP, would be united in opposing all attacks on media, not just this particular, these two NTC memoranda, but we have to look at the context in which these things are happening.
Okay, Sir Herman, Mr. Basbaño, what is your take on the Rappler announcement that the SEC has pushed through, and it's their decision not to not to give them a certificate, etc. I mean, kailangan ba nila yon? Kasi may mga nagsasabi na di sara nyo nang isara, meron namang YouTube di mag-YouTube na lang kami o social media na lang kami. Does a legitimate media entity lose its power, its significance, just because the state takes away its ability to broadcast or to simulate or to bring out their material?
Well, it is sad, Cito. It's unfortunate na nangyayari ito. Sarap there din the alternative media, no? Sinasabi nila na may social media naman. But, mainstream media, Cito, the traditional media should really be there, should be strengthened. As a matter of fact, we're still strong. They should not believe that the mainstream media is a thing of the past, no? We're still strong. We have, the Philippine setting would dictate and would tell us na kahit saan ka, nandyan pa rin yung mainstream media. And one advantage for us, nasabi ko na to in the previous interview, this is also good for the industry, but good also for the public. Na I don't say na hindi naman yung iba na mas transparent. But tayo andito there is accountability on our part. Kaya nga maasahan talaga yung mga lumalabas sa ating platform, sa ating radyo, sa ating television, no? Kaya dapat i-maintain na dapat palakasin pa sana yan ng lahat na sektor. And then government should even help us do that.
Yeah, okay. Now, Dan, itong, I find it ironic as I was listening to Herman that, mainstream media is a vital part of society kasi parang, in the 90s and early 2000, we all began to talk about media management. Kumbaga, okay, media was wild, wild west, very liberal, very unrestrained. But towards the 90s, after martial law, after all of the conflicts of media and government, everybody started realizing, hey, we can manage media. Whether it's our media or their media, we can manage it. But mukhang ngayon, hindi na media management, shut down or buy out.
Yeah. That's a good point. And whether it's a shutdown or a buyout, we leave that to, the internal mechanisms within self-regulation to determine. For example, if a media organization would decide to shut down, it should be on its own terms. It's not because of impositions by the government, because that would be bad for the practice of journalism. Actually, not just journalism, that would be bad for the practice of media in general. So that includes journalism, advertising and public relations, and entertainment. So that's why we have to contextualize properly everything that's happening right now. The NTC can always say that there's no reason to panic because it's still a draft memorandum and that there will be consultations. But the bottom line here, Cito, is that there is already a pattern toward normalizing repression. They want to say that this is something regular, this is something that government should be doing for the sake of the people. But what we lose here would be more than just simply the convenience of regulation, because we don't want normalization of repression. So that's the long and short of it.
Okay, now, Sir Herman, what is your okay? You pointed out na if this pushes through, a lot of radio stations in the country will ultimately shut down or will sell out because wala na silang mga block timer. And most of them are heavily dependent on block timers to fill their airtime. Now, what other chilling effects can this NTC circular create? Because my initial concern in all of this was, eto na may pag-asang magkatrabaho lahat yung mga nawalan ng trabaho from their displacement, specifically with ABS-CBN. And suddenly, that opportunity to find jobs will be stopped or seriously limited because of the NTC. And parang mangyayari nito, mukhang parang yung mga big programs lang, yung mga big stars lang, ang makikinabang, the little people will all disappear.
Yeah, definitely. Ganun yung mangyayari, Cito, no? You know, this sort of Damocles is not really good for everyone. Yung epekto, sinasabi ni Professor Arao, tama yun, no? Sa industriya, sa broadcast, and then sa buong media, no? But it will have its effect as well as our democracy. Di ba? Press freedom natin yung magpapahayag yung apektado dyan. So malaking epekto yan para sa lahat dito. It's not only the financial aspect that will be, greatly affected by this, no? Kundi pati yung, ang worry is not only with the media but with other people. If, this continue, and then parang series pa yung nangyayari na ganito, ay talagang malaki yung agam-agam ang worry ng ating mga mamayan pag ganito, Cito.
Okay, Professor Rao, any other pointers you want to raise? Kasi medyo ang issue dito, there is something you mentioned, draft memorandum. Paano naging draft? Yung nakuha ko, finished copy.
Exactly. So actually, it's very, very puzzling because if there is due process, there should just be a call for a meeting or a consultation where the draft will be presented, and then they would ask, KBP, ano tingin mo rito? May I get your feedback on this? But what happened is there is an announcement done through the public. I'm able to download that draft memo. I don't know what kind of source you're able to gather, Cito, but from the website of the NTC, you're able to download the two draft memoranda. So it would appear to be, after the fact na lang yung consultation. But they've already set a certain mindset regarding regulation of media content, which is, by the way, very unacceptable. And this pattern of lack of due process, I need to repeat this over and over and over and over. It's clearly seen in the blocking of the websites of certain groups, including news media organizations like Bulatlat and Pinoy Weekly. So that kind of a pattern should stop because if NTC would really be, consultative and inclusive, then they should defer to the wisdom of media groups like the KBP as well as the academe. They should not forget the academe in consulting, on important matters like this.
Well, I'll take up this issue about due process with Attorney Cayosa in a few minutes. But let me ask a last question to Sir Herman Basbaño. Sir Herman, itong draft memorandum, I mean, draft ba ito or official pronouncement because it came out on the website? I mean, medyo parang, hello, nilabas mo sa website ninyo nung pinagsasabi mong test only. Ano ito, basketball?
Well, yun din ang hindi natin maintindihan. Kaya sabi namin, we will seek clarification on this, no? Dahil may hearing, dapat doon lahat napakinggan muna bago maggawa ng desisyon. Pero may order.
Were you invited to a hearing on this subject matter?
We haven't received any notice yet, but I was informed by our director na mayroong hearing na scheduled July 11, which we will attend and will present our position. Pero official notice, wala pa. Pero dapat yung proseso, tama sabi ni Professor Arao. No? Although in the NTC daw, parang gano'n na kuminsan may lumalabas na ganyan, di ba? Order daw, then tapos circular na yung maging final dyan. Tapos IRR, parang gano'n yung sinasabi. But still, not normal that it will happen like that. No? Na talagang akala natin order, but actually order, kung basahin mo talaga, it's already a directive, Cito eh.
Yeah, and okay, my last question, last na talaga. Is there basis for this? Kasi normally tayo as managers, executives, even people in authority, before you start making any pronouncements, decisions, or rules, it is based on something that has to be addressed. Kumbaga, there is a problem, there is a wrong practice or whatever, where you now come up with a solution to address that. Meron bang naging abuse? May mga kaso ba? May mga complaints ba before the KBP that have been substantial in volume or impact that can be justified by the NTC as cause for them clamping down?
Well, kung meron man Cito, it should be resolved within.
No. I'm not asking for I'm not speculating, Chairman, Mr. President. Tinatanong ko, may mga nagko-complain ba? May mga patong-patong ba yung kaso dyan sa KBP na, black timer kami, winalang niya kami, or etc.?
Well, kung patong-patong, wala akong makita, no? Though from time to time, alam naman ng self-regulatory body namin, we have cases that, we encourage people to file against our members, no? Meron on the way they handle the program, meron kasama siguro yung black time dyan, o hindi ganun na talaga maging malaking basis para dyan. But if ever na meron Cito, no, going back to what I have said earlier, there is a system within our ambit na ma-address yan. We have the Standards Authority, reklamo ka dyan, then of course, i-hearing yan, may penalties, may sanctions. Or kung hindi ka para talaga satisfied, then you go to the courts of law. We have enough laws, actually, Cito, to cover this. No? Kaya, in fairness, na ang NTC makinig rin sa ating side. Baka may present din sila na hindi natin nakita. But of course, again, we hope that the hearing next week or on the 11th will be an opportunity really for them to, listen to our side, listen to our position, the position of
I respect,
professionals.
I respect your prudence and temperance, but alam mo, Sir Herman, medyo sa akin kasi sa business, pag may pakialamero, nakakasira ng shares of stocks, nakakasira ng investors, confidence, etc. at nakakagulo ng buhay. So we should all be vigilant about this kasi this is business. This is not some office in government that you can come and go. Anyway, Dan, I think Professor Arao wanted to make a last point. Professor?
Yeah, let us address the bigger elephant in the room right now, which is press freedom. We all know that there was a shutdown of ABS-CBN 2 years ago, and ABS-CBN, unfortunately for the government, still exists right now. And they want to further shut down and clamp down on the operations based on media reports that ABS-CBN wants to engage in certain black time arrangements with at least 2 news media organizations. So we have to look at it that way in light of the attacks against Rappler, as well as the shutdown of selected websites, including Bulatlat and Pinoy Weekly. And let's not forget, Cito, the red tagging still continues within the ranks of the media. So the attack should stop, and it will only stop not because the government says so, but because we are doing the pushback against the powers that be. So we have to continue speaking truth to power, especially now that we're transitioning to an administration headed by the son of the dictator. So we have to keep that mindset as well. Thank you.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's all about common sense. It's all about what is legal and what is correct. In any case, gentlemen, thank you for your inputs. We will go for a quick break, and when we return, kami naman ng aming lawyer consultant na hindi niya alam consultant siya na wala namang bayad, we will bring in Attorney Cayosa. Thank you very much, Professor Dan and Sir Herman. Thank you and have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go for a quick break. When we return, I will attempt to tackle the legal aspects of this concern, the subject matter here on agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host Cito Beltran. Thanking you for joining us. And before we get back into the very hot topic, babatiin ko lang po yung aming traveling buddy, Therese Techi Ejercito Moralde. Happy birthday to you and God bless your day today. Enjoy your time there in Clark. Okay, now let's go back to our program. Let's introduce our next guest. He is the unbeknownst to himself that he is now officially one of our legal consultants here on Agenda. Attorney Cayosa, former President IBP. Let's watch his video first.
Attorney Domingo Cayosa is an accomplished corporate and litigation lawyer in the country. He previously served as the president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines from 2019 to 2021. In 2020, Cayosa was appointed to the Executive Committee of Law Asia, a law association for Asia and the Pacific.
Attorney Cayosa, good morning and thank you for joining us, Attorney. Now, mukhang nag-freeze tayong. Ayun, akala ko nag-freeze ka. Ang galing mo talagang mag-hold your breath, Attorney. Ano? Okay, breathtaking itong pag-uusapan natin. This NTC memorandum essentially telling broadcast stations you cannot sell more than 50% of your airtime. You need to get our approval before you enter into those arrangements, etc., etc. And if there are any legal issues, both you and the block timer are jointly and solidarily responsible. Okay, your thoughts, Attorney?
Morning, Cito, at magandang umaga sa nakikinig na nanonood sa atin. It is a very clear exercise of NTC of a power that it doesn't have. It is an attack on your freedom of the press, freedom of expression, yung right of people to know. So it's very unfortunate na nangyayari ito, and we hope that kayo sa media will then later should withdraw this. Yung mga usap-usap ngayon na may consultation daw. Paano ka magkaroon ng consultation? Linabas mo na yung memorandum, no? Yung usap-usapan na draft, yung makikita mo naman, pirmado. Siguro nakita na nila na nagkamali sila. Mas maganda siguro sabihin, nagkamali kami dito, i-withdraw muna natin, and then saka yung pag-uusapan.
Okay, from a lawyer's perspective, as a lawyer, let's first tackle itong issue ng draft. Kasi this is not the first time that a government office releases a statement and then, that wasn't intended for publication. It was just a draft resolution or a draft statement written by one of our junior associates. Yan ba allowed in terms of in government na I mean, is it violating a law? May penalty ba for that kind of system?
If you are referring Cito here dun sa June 23 order ng NTC, ito naman hindi draft, pirmado ito eh.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your question, government is not allowed to experiment and play around with its powers. Bago ka maglabas, bago ka pumirma, pag-isipan mo muna kung mayroong proseso of consultation, mangonsulta ka muna bago ka maglabas ng pirma ng order. So ito yung, it should not be taken lightly because government officials, whoever they are, from the president down to the janitor, have a responsibility. They have limits in their powers and they must operate and act only within those powers. Kung sa private sector ito, kung ikaw nagkunwari na may kapangyarihan o may kakayanan at wala naman pala, ang tawag dyan, estafador. No? Nakukulong ka criminally. Pero sa gobyerno, biglang magiging draft o kaya sorry na lang. So we hope that they act with more circumspect. No? At mahirap kasi dito, nagiging practice natin, magalang masyado yung publiko, pati nga yung KBP, yung media outlets, sila na mismo ang bibigay ng lusot sa mga nagkakamali. So that's very Filipino, except that it breeds a culture of impunity and lack of accountability. In other jurisdictions, kung ganyan kagrabe yung pagkakamali, pinaparesign, tinatanggal. Dito kasi hindi nagkakapatawaran tayo. So that's just one example. We're not pushing for litigation, but we should certainly improve our sense of accountability.
Okay, those are very strong words and very valid points of view. Now, as far as consultation is concerned, because, okay, the first sin was coming out with a memorandum order, a memorandum order that is violative of many things. But okay, so, and then calling it a draft. So sabi mo, hindi pwede. You cannot call a mistake a draft, not intended to be done. Now, second, what about the failure to consult, releasing a decision but failing to consult?
Well, ang nature ng NTC, it's a collegial body, and by their own internal rules and the law creating the NTC and other subsequent amendatory laws of the Republic, dapat collegial yan. So lahat ng desisyon dapat sila lahat, at least majority dun sa tatlo. So kung merong isang nagkamali, dapat managot siya. It's very sad that a very important issue like this, para bang ulong-sulong. Shotgun approach, para bang tinetesting lang kung nagkamali. So the sooner the better na i-rectify ito. Para yung kinakatakutan nyo at nangyayari na ata, yung chilling effect, maiwasan yun. Because freedom of the press, freedom of expression is a basic pillar of our democratic system.
Is there a violation of law or process that the order was issued without prior consultation with the parties affected?
Well, it's not even consultation. It is hearing. That's what law and the rules require. Kasi yung consultation, makinig ka lang, gagawin pa rin ang gusto mo. Kasi ikaw yung may poder. In this particular case, kung wala kang poder, wala kang authority under the law, or it is beyond the parameters of the law, kahit 1,000 consultation, kahit kayo lahat sa media pumayag, you cannot confer the power to any agency or to any official kung wala yan dun sa batas.
Okay, so that's a good point dahil wala kang karapatan, nagpapanggap ka. So kahit na magpanggap ka, it has no effect. But going back to that issue, yung walang hearing, kasi you're right, you consult from until kingdom comes, but the law says you must conduct hearings. And what happens, what is the consequence of an agency or an office like NTC not conducting hearings but issuing memorandums? Is this under the grave abuse of authority?
Yes, it's not only, well, let's also clarify, Cito, yung pag-i-issue ng policy, rules, ganyan, consultation yan. Hindi naman hearing kasi may poder naman. Pero yung pagtanggal ng karapatan, yung pagtanggal ng prangkisa, pag-block ng website, kinakailangang hearing yan, malinaw yan. Due process, the law and the rules require due process, and that's hearing before penalty is done or taking away of life, liberty, or property. Ngayon, yung consultation naman, maganda kung may consultation, but regardless, kahit mag-consult kayo at pumayag lahat, assuming kayo sa KBP, sa media, pumayag lahat, kung wala naman yung poder na yan sa batas o violative yan sa ating saligang batas and existing and many jurisprudence of the Supreme Court, yung bang prior restraint or violation of the freedom of the press, that will still be struck down as illegal. At kung sino man ang gumawa niyan, mananagot pa rin, whether administratively, criminally, or civilly.
Okay, no, what about the content of the memorandum? Because in the memorandum, they are essentially, according to other lawyers, interfering with the conduct of business. Mukhang may mga batas yata or restrictions na, government can regulate, but it cannot meddle in what is essentially conduct of business. Paki-explain nga yun, attorney.
Well, tama naman yung puna ng mga abogado. abogado. No, NTC has the power to regulate, but it cannot interfere into the private affairs of corporations. Yung mga entities, individuals, corporations have the right to enter into any contract with anyone as long as it does not violate the law. So yung pakikialaman mo kung ilang porsyento dyan ang black time at hindi, malinaw wala na yan sa kanilang poder. Wala na sa kanilang regulatory function. You cannot see that in the law creating NTC, in their internal rules, or any other subsequent law, including the policy on telecommunications at pati yung pandemic rules na linabas nila. Wala yan doon. So they cannot interfere into the freedom of parties to contact. Hindi sila board of directors ng mga media outlets. Purely private yan in nature. Makakapasok lang sila, makikialam, kung may nalalabag na batas. O kaya yung pag-allocate ng mga frequencies at iba pa. Pero yung pakikialam sa management, internal na po yan. That's perfectly within the private privileges of the parties. The other one is mas nakakatakot yung sinabi nila na you cannot enter into these contracts unless you submit them to us for review and for our approval. So,
Yes.
Yun talagang malinaw na wala na silang poder sa ganyan. Sana naman napag-isipan nila ito, may mga abogado naman sila bago nila dinabas. Siguro tinetesting lang kayo Cito. So it's good that you are rising against it at kami naman abogado, part of our ethical duty to explain the law.
Yeah, but is this something that the IBP can also contest or act on? Because I mean, it is an issue or a question of law. Kasi isa nga sa mga points na ni-raise ko, one of the points I raised in my column was that there is a KB fee for broadcast stations and there is a conflict or kumbaga trespassing na ang NTC into the realm of the KBP.
Well, the more appropriate party should be or organization is tama ka, KBP or any other media group. Kasi kayo yung directly involved in prejudice. Kasi yung standing kasi kahit yung IBP, trabaho namin na ipaliwanag yung batas, a lawyer's opinion can be might be different from another person. And it's not our primary function at baka lang sasabihin ng korte, wala kaming standing kasi hindi naman kami directly injured. It is true that it's a question of law. Tutulong IBP siguro dyan, gaya ng ginagawa namin. But kayo ang dapat umaksyon dito. You would be the party, yung KBP, the media outfits would be the proper party to bring this before the courts. But mukha ngayon, ang approach ninyo is dialogue muna, representation, which is also welcome. Baka nga mas mabilis yan kaysa kaagad pumunta sa korte. Mukhang umaatras naman ng NTC when you do a pushback. But our point is, responsible government officials or entities should just act within their power and don't wait for a pushback.
Okay, but when that situation happens, when you have, and I'm not referring to anyone in particular here, but what happens when a person of authority stands pat, refuses to change his position even when it is patently wrong? Is there a provision in law where you can sue a government official for taking, as you said, exercising authority that has no basis?
Well, definitely, there is a process. It can be an injunction from the courts of law. It can also be overturning of that decision from.
But can you sue the individual official?
Yes, of course.
So like with the sandigan or in court, whatever. Ano ba mga kasong pwedeng masampa pag hindi nag-ingat ang isang government official?
Well, one is administratively. When you act beyond your powers, you assume powers that you don't have, you violate due process, that is against the ethics of public servants. Mananagot ka, pwede kang matanggal, ma-demote, o kaya mamulta. Pangalawa, civil damages. If malinaw sa ating civil code, anyone who violates the constitutional right of another will be held accountable for civil damages. Hindi kasi ito ginagamit eh. Pangatlo, criminal sanctions. Kung basa natin dun sa NTC Presidential Decree at ibang mga batas, may penal sanctions ito. Pang-apat, pinakamatindi ito, pwede itong maipasok dun sa provision ng Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Ito ang pinakamabigat sapagkat mawawalan ng government lawyer yung nasasakdal. So ang pina-question nyo is not the institution itself, but the particular officer who might have abused his discretion, acted beyond his powers. Anti-graft din yan eh.
Okay, well, I'm really learning and I'm sure that our audience is learning from you, Attorney Cayosa. Now, last question ko na lang because we only have 2 minutes. This thing about the SEC, kasi Rappler, Maria Ressa says that the SEC upheld order to shut down Rappler. Now, medyo, I have to confess, I'm ignorant about the role of the SEC in shutting down media. Kasi parang sabi ko, medyo, I don't get it. How does this happen?
Well, baka lang yan sa inaccurate reporting because I trust that the SEC knows also the boundaries of its powers. Wala namang poder ang SEC to shut down any media outlet. The only authority of SEC is to say whether or not registered ka or you can exist as a corporation. Even if that's the case, kahit hindi ka korporasyon, hindi naman kinakailangan korporasyon ka to exercise your freedom of expression. Hindi naman kinakailangan korporasyon ka para magsalita publicly. Diba? So siguro it will just make it more inconvenient for them, but it does not amount to a shutdown kung sinabi ng SEC na i-revoke ang kanilang registration.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. As always, marami ka na namang naturo. And I do hope that some parties listen to you because you are correct. All this abuse of power or this lack of prudence on the part of policymakers continues because those affected don't really follow through in taking up legal actions or corrective measures. So sana naman dumating tayo sa punto that we start exercising our rights and we put an end to this kind of baka sakali management. Thank you very much, Attorney Cayosa.
Maraming salamat. Magandang umaga po.
Okay, that's Attorney Domingo Cayosa, our voluntold legal counsel. Okay, let's now go to the blessing for the week. And it is from the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 2 to 3. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. I pray that God blesses you today, this week, and that I pray that God will bless the Philippines. Thank you for joining us on Agenda today, and thank you, and please keep it here on One News PH.